Hey, this is Captain Paul Brawley with Fish Finder Guide Service. Welcome to this week's edition of Texas Fishing Tips. We're going to be starting out over here in the boat hole. Where you're going to see that the tides have fallen considerably right now, late in the week, as we get hurricane or tropical storm Beryl going to Mexico. We will get a little bit of a tide rise, but I don't believe it's going to be super significant, and it should fall very quickly. So I suspect these lower tides will remain. Just like in almost every July, we're going to be looking at these drops, all the drops along these channels through here and up in here. These fish, as the water gets hotter, are going to start moving towards the deeper water. We're going to be looking at those drops for trout and redfish. You're going to be looking to use croakers, piggy perch if you can get them. For the trout and reds, I'm still free lining them using number 6 or number 7 kell hooks. If you start early, you could start about 50 yards off of those drops back, and you're going to be just throwing your bait still kind of on the flat. But you'll notice around mid-morning that bite will slow down, and you'll need to move out right where you're throwing right on the drop. They're going to be on that transition where it goes from a 2-foot flat to the 6-foot channel. They're going to be right on that transition, and you should still catch both species. I am starting to look in some of these channels in here and on this big flat right here for black drum. A little bit of them on this flat right here also, making long drifts. Standing up on some type of an elevated deal. I have an elevated bar I stand on, a platform. Some people have the front casting platforms. Some people will put a big or ice chest on the nose of their boat. And we're just drifting through there. We're looking for those drums to be floating. I'm using like a 1/16 ounce lead head with a dead shrimp. Just a half a shrimp on there, and I'm trying to put it out in front of the direction that the drums are going and kind of letting it fall. I'm not doing a whole lot more than that. Some of the drums are spooky. Some of them, if you bounce it a little bit, will chase it down, but a lot of times they'll run off from it unless it's just sitting there kind of motionless. The tides are pretty low, so if you're going to look for reds, we're going to be looking for them anywhere closer to these channels. 50 yards either side of these channels, 50 yards either side of this channel, as well as the channels that I have indicated earlier. Any of those areas should work out for you. Like I said earlier, 50, 60 yards up on the flat off the drops, and as the sun comes up, about 10 o'clock, moving out where you're landing on the transition. Anyway, we're going to move on a little bit south from here. All right, we're moving to the south side of the causeway. We're going to be following that same pattern. We're going to be looking at this long channel that runs through here, and we're going to be starting early, 50, 60 yards away from this channel. And we're going to let our baits, sit on the flat that's off the channel. We're still using croakers, piggies, whatever you can get with a number 7 kell hook, number 6 kell hook, free lined. And we're going to be looking to catch our trout and redfish off of these drops. As the sun comes up, once again, we're going to move up onto the flat, right on the transition. I'm not sitting on the transition. I'm sitting 20 yards back where I'm casting, 50, 60 feet, and I'm landing right on the transition where the flat meets the channel. And I'll be picking up trout and redfish doing that. Look for the tides to remain low. We will get a little bit of a tide late this week, probably from Beryl, but I would imagine within one day it'll be gone, as the storm should not push a significant tide because it did not develop in the Gulf and swell in the Gulf. It's just a moving storm going to move through the Gulf. I do not believe that where we are located, probably going to be about 180 miles from where it makes landfall, that we will get a significant humongous storm surge or tide from that. If we do, you're going to move and start fishing the backsides of all these little spoils here, the backside of sulfur spoils, anywhere behind all these little islands right here. the backsides of all these little islands and cuts, any of that type stuff. These shorelines through here, you're just going to kind of move your game a little forward, but I don't expect a higher tide, so I'm going to stick with the plan where we're looking at for our fish a little closer to these drops. So that would kind of be the story in that area, and I'll move us just a little further south, and we're going to be talking about the east drop next. All right, we're going to once again talk about the natural gut. This long body of water right here is your natural gut. This is the east drop. It comes all the way back around here and a little bit into here. The east drop has held out tremendously through the last tropical storm, through a high tide, through a low tide. I'm still kind of following my July game plan where I'm staying about 50 to 100 yards off of the drop early. You should be able to finish your trout before you ever have to make one move. But if you do have to move and it gets around 9 or 10 o'clock, you're going to move out to where you're throwing right on the transition of this drop. We're still going to be using the number 6 or 7 kell hooks, using croakers or piggy perch, whatever you can get. We're looking for trout. The trout slot limit is 15 to 20 inches. A maximum of 3 trout per person per day. Unless you catch one over 30, you may retain that. I'm going to go ahead and throw you a good luck on that out there. Anyway, the trout have been tremendous on the east drop. It has been a no-fail going on about 6 to 7 straight weeks right now. There's no reason you can't go out there with your family, set up, and catch the trout you need. It is a really, really long area, very broad, lots of room, no reason to be on top of anybody. You could fit 1,000 boats on there, all the way up and down that thing, and no one has to be on top of each other. So give each person room, spread out. There's a lot of room. There's plenty of trout there. Some guys are fishing the drop. Some guys are out here fishing the dead middle of the natural gut. Some guys are over here fishing the west side of the drop. The entire thing is tremendous trout fishing right now. It's one of the greatest opportunities of the year to get out there and get you some fish. Always, of course, if you're having trouble, you could always hit me up for a trip and expedite your learning curve. But I think I've given you the information that you need where you can get the job done. Looking on these flats here, this big flat, this other big flat, and this smaller section of this flat, all of those require a very long drift, whichever direction your wind's blowing. We're saying it's southeast. A long drift all the way across this, all the way across these guys, several drifts all the way across. They require long drifts, a lot of patience, a lot of casting, but you can catch some really nice redfish through there. You may catch one adrift. The drifts take 45 minutes or so. You might catch 3 in a drift, but they can catch you some reds. You could go through there with a popping cork and a gulp, like the shrimp pattern, or you could go through there throwing lures, paddle tails, down south lures, power based by Berkeley, H&H, Cocoa Minnow, any of that type stuff. All those different lures are really, really work well. If you're going to go the popping cork route, look up Four Horsemen corks, especially the titanium ones. They will not bend on you. They're the longest lasting, loudest cork you can possibly get. You put on a 3-inch gulp and you drift through this, popping that sucker, and you will catch you a couple of reds. Nice red fishing through there. It is very, very broad, very scattered. The reds are in little pods. You may hit 4 or 5 real soon and may not hit another one until you get out here deeper. So just be patient doing that. It's a lot of long drifts, but there are reds there to be had. Anyway, that's this week's edition of Texas Fishing Tips. And you guys have a great week and a wonderful 4th of July.